Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I am the creator of rulingplanets.com and Christopher Renstrom Astrology. And this week, I want to welcome you to the latest episode of What Planet Are They On? This is a question that I'd like to ask of myself whenever I look at an astrological chart. So, the person that we will be looking at this week is E. Jean Carroll. So we will go ahead and ask the question, what planet is she on? And the answer to that question is Jupiter. You may not all be familiar with the name of E. Jean Carroll, but you've likely heard about the $83.3 million that Donald Trump has to pay her for public statements he made in 2019 disparaging her and denying her allegations of rape. E. Jean Carroll was born on December 12, 1943. That makes her a Sagittarius. Sagittarius, as you know, is a fire sign. It is the last sign of the autumn signs, and Sagittarius is known for its love of adventure, its wisdom, its love of justice, and its humor. These are all qualities that one can find in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius also happens to be a very moral sign. The ruling planet of Sagittarius is Jupiter. Now, in the way that I work in astrology, I always work with the ruling planet. But for me, the ruling planet is simply the planet that rules the sun sign. Different astrologers have different interpretations of what a ruling planet is. Sometimes it's the ruler of the ascendant. Sometimes it's the final dispositor of the chart, but for me, the ruling planet is always the planet that rules the sun sign. So when I say that E. Jean Carroll's ruling planet is Jupiter, what I'm saying is that Jupiter is like E. Jean Carroll's patron saint, den mother, corporate sponsor, and life coach all wrapped up into one, which is indeed what everyone's ruling planet is. It is the planet that you want to follow in the sky, to see where it is. Is it going through a part of the sky that's beneficial to you? Or is it going through a part of the sky where it's having some difficulty and trouble? To be born under a ruling planet means that ruling planet is your patron. And when I read an astrological chart, that planet is on the same level as the sun, moon, and ascendant. All right, so basically, if your ruling planet is moving through a wonderful patch of sky, you can expect good things. And if your ruling planet is moving through a difficult part of the sky, that doesn't mean you can expect bad things, but what it means is that it's not at its most effective. It can't do the best job that it can to protect and to provide for you, which is basically what a patron does. This is interesting because Jupiter in astrology is the planet of patrons and patronage. We know Jupiter in astrology as being the planet of good fortune. Everyone's always happy when Jupiter transits through their chart because it means that this is going to be a lucky year if it's going through your own particular zodiac sign. But Jupiter is also a protector. Named after the largest planet in our solar system, Jupiter in a chart serves a similar function. In that Jupiter in our solar system, because it's the largest planet, its gravitational pull pulls into its orbit and sometimes comes crashing on the surface of the planet, all those errant meteors and asteroids that, if Jupiter weren't there, probably would have taken out planet Earth a long time ago. So the idea of protecting is very much associated with Jupiter. And people born under Jupiter do indeed experience good fortune, but people born under Jupiter also experience what I would call divine protection. And in the case of E. Jean Carroll, her ruling planet Jupiter is in the zodiac sign of Leo. So, what does it mean to have your Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Leo? Well, it means basically that fortune smiles on you just about all the time. All right. So, where other people might be asking, where's fortune in my life? I don't seem to have good fortune. Whenever I play the lottery, I never win and things never turn out my way. Or maybe even you experience fortune in your life as being hard earned. You have to work very, very hard for your fortune. Or maybe you're the sort of person who feels that fortune is what you make of it. that you are responsible for your own good fortune and you're not going to rely on some planet or divinity to give you a break. It's all up to you and making your way in the world. So we all have different ideas of what good fortune means in our lives. When you were born under Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Leo, so if you're a child of Jupiter, with Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Leo especially, fortune has a tendency to smile on you. You can't help but come into lucky breaks for good things to happen to you. It's almost like the golden apples wait for you to pass underneath so that they can fall down into your lap. And this can happen sometimes to a little bit of an embarrassing degree in terms of like how much, good fortune is there, if you have Jupiter and Leo. But I've yet to hear anyone with Jupiter and Leo complain about it. If anything, they have a tendency to sort of keep it as a guilty secret. Like, they don't want to call too much attention to when it happens in life. So when you are a Sagittarius, born with Jupiter and Leo, you might feel to some regard that you are untouchable, that you can go out into the world with all of that sense of zeal and excitement and adventure that a Sagittarius has, and that there is a guardian angel who's looking out over you, who's looking out for you. And many times, a Jupiter and Leo can act like that. It can give people a sense of nothing bad can happen to me because I've got fortune on my side. Now, some people might think, well, this is going to lead to errant behavior or to hubristic decisions and actions and things along those lines. And it could, but more often than not, I found that it really sort of plays into a person's horoscope in really sort of encouraging them to be the best that they can be and to go and do things that people wouldn't usually do. That's why I like to use the word adventurous and maybe even a little daring do with a Jupiter in Leo. But Jupiter in Leo does have one demand that it will make on people that are born under it, especially if you're a Sagittarius. And that is that you must be true to yourself. That's the one requirement. That's the one demand that the Jupiter in Leo makes. In other words, good fortune comes to you through your life through the Leonine energy. And what is Leo about? Leo is about being the best person that you can possibly be. So that means if you have a talent, a skill, an ability, you need to pursue that wherever that will take you. If you have a sense of personal honor, you need to stand by that. If you have a personal truth, you need to express that. So a Jupiter in Leo will encourage all of those Leonine tendencies to be true to who you are and to speak the truth. And in many ways, this is exactly what E. Jean Carroll is known for. She had an advice column in Elle magazine that ran from 1993 until 2019. And the name of that column was Ask E. Jean. And there she would give out advice to women about their lives, but it wasn't done in a sort of Dear Abby or Dear Ann Landers sort of way. It was done to encourage women to be the best that they could possibly be. E. Jean Carroll was often described as being a feminist and a very brave and bold feminist. And she was always encouraging women to be the best that they could be and to not be shined by a man or oppressed by a man or put down by a man. I think even the name of her autobiography is What Do We Need Men For? So she was very liberated, very emancipated, and very adventurous. As a journalist, her journalist style was known as being very autobiographical, being very, very first person, where journalists might write about things happening to them or they're observing a situation or something. E. Jean Carroll would go and put herself in that situation so that she could give the reader of her works this feeling of being there firsthand. So she was that kind of an adventurous, participatory, very much engaged journalist. She appeared a lot on television and was regarded as a very daring, bold, colorful voice. She was also regarded as being exceptionally funny and very entertaining. And what you see here is the combination of Sagittarius, which is the adventure, going where no centaur has gone before, combined with the Jupiter, the ruling planet Jupiter in Leo. And what is Leo associated with again? But arts and entertainment and sports and basically the things that give us joy and pleasure in life. And these were the areas that she excelled. And these were the areas where she was very well known. So the thing that I want you to focus on as I talk about E. Jean Carroll today is that her sun is in Sagittarius at 19 degrees Sagittarius, and her Jupiter is at 27 degrees Leo. So she's got sun in Sagittarius, that's her zodiac sign. The sun is at 19 Sagittarius, and the ruling planet Jupiter is in Leo at 27 degrees Leo. These are the things that I want you to focus on. And I also want to make another note that because the sun is in Sagittarius, it rules the Jupiter in Leo because the sun is the planet that rules Leo. And because Jupiter is in Leo, it rules the sun, which is in Sagittarius. So not only do we have a very powerful fire trine, which is very invincible, this is the sun rising on a new day, it's triumphant. So there is an indomitable factor to E. Jean Carroll as long as she is true to herself, all right? She has to live up to the occasion of the big personality that she really, really is. On June 21st, 2019, E. Jean Carroll published an article in New York Magazine stating that Donald Trump, who was president at the time, had sexually assaulted her in the spring of 1996 in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman. Now, Trump immediately that same day denied the accusation, saying she's not my type and it never happened. Okay, so she comes out with this article in New York Magazine publicly accusing the president of the United States of having sexually assaulted her. And his response is to deny it and to also add, she's not my type. Now, when you have a ruling planet Jupiter in Leo, or even if you have Jupiter in Leo, there is a public quality to that planet. In other words, there's nothing private about it. There's nothing secretive or creeping around the back stair. Whenever you have a planet in Leo, especially Jupiter in Leo, especially if your ruling planet Jupiter is in Leo, this is going to call much public attention to whatever it is you do. And so writing, accusing the president of the United States of sexual assault in a major magazine, that is very, very public. Also remember at this time that Jupiter is the planet associated with publishing, as in Sagittarius. So this is a published claim in a magazine accusing someone holding the highest public office in the United States of America. Now, let me go ahead and unpack for you what's going on astrologically with E. Jean Carroll's chart. Now, in the spring of 1996, this is when she accuses Donald Trump of having sexually assaulted her in a dressing room. What was going on at that time is that Pluto, the planet of ordeals and the transformations that arise from them, first entered the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. That's important because E. Jean Carroll is a Sagittarius and Pluto is entering her sign at that time. Not only had it entered the sign at that time, but Pluto also turned retrograde. Now, retrogrades, especially where Pluto is involved, are all about planting seeds. So in other words, a planet enters, it's going direct, it stops, it turns retrograde. What it does is that it sort of plants a seed right there, a seed that will sprout or grow into something. And this, again, is referencing Pluto's domain, because Pluto is named after the Greek god Hades, who is god of the underworld in Greek mythology. And the underworld is where bodies were buried, secret treasures were stored, and also the underworld is where seeds lie until the following season when they receive water and sun and they begin to grow again. All right, so these themes are here, this descent into the underworld. So when Pluto enters your zodiac sign for the first time, and Pluto had entered Sagittarius at this time. It was going to be in Sagittarius until 2009. This begins what would have been the descent, Eugene Carroll's descent down into the underworld, and it takes place with a sexual assault. Now, sexual assault is associated to Pluto and the myth of Hades. This doesn't say that if you have Pluto entering your sign, you're going to be sexually assaulted or anything like that. No, not at all. But what's interesting here is that it does have an association, because in the Greek myth, Hades abducts the daughter of Ceres, who's about maybe 13 or 14, and he sexually assaults her, and he takes her down into the underworld, where he keeps her and where she ultimately will become his wife. So whenever you have Pluto very strong in your chart, maybe and maybe it's associated with the eighth house, I have seen in many cases that a strong Pluto or eighth house placements in a chart can indicate sexual abuse in a chart. So I just find that interesting as an astrologer that Pluto has just entered the sign when this sexual assault takes place. And it's an assault by a male deity who is bigger and stronger than Persephone is. What's also interesting is that Pluto is the brother of Jupiter, and both of these gods are associated to justice and to judges, but we'll get to that in a moment. So here we have this assault that takes place when Pluto enters the zodiac sign of Eugene Carroll, and it turns retrograde. So what that means is that the assault takes place and it immediately is buried. It plants a seed. Pluto retreats from that place, and you can sort of see it as, literally the seed being buried until further notice, right? And there's a lot of further notice. The Eugene Carroll doesn't really come forth with what happened for a number of years. She does confide in a couple of very close friends, but we don't really hear any of this until 24 years later. All right. And it's 24 years later, on June 21st, 2019, that Eugene Carroll publishes her article in New York Magazine. What's fascinating about this is that it coincides with ruling planet Jupiter transiting Sagittarius for the second time. So Jupiter transit had actually just finished transiting Sagittarius prior to the sexual assault. It transited Sagittarius again 12 years after that initial 1996 date. And then it passes through the zodiac sign of Sagittarius again 24 years later. Why is this important? Jupiter is Eugene Carroll's ruling planet, and it is in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. So this is connected to fortune and higher purpose. These are the two things that Jupiter will rule over: good fortune and higher purpose. And it's also very important to remember that Jupiter is a planet of justice. All right. So now we're in the June 21st, 2019. She publicly accuses Donald Trump, who is now the president of the United States, of sexual assault, not with friends, not, overly loud at a cafe or a restaurant somewhere. She accuses him in a written article. So nobody has to go and look up the tweet or the email or anything like that. It is a written, published article in New York, and she accuses him of this. Now, although Pluto is no longer in Sagittarius, it's moved on to the other side, Capricorn, Eugene Carroll's ruling planet Jupiter is. And at the time of this accusation, when the article appears in print, the accusation that Trump denies and says she's not my type, at that time that the article is published, not only is Jupiter in Sagittarius, but it is retrograde. And we know that retrograde plants seeds, for a future event. This is what a retrograde will do. So not only is Jupiter in Sagittarius, it's retrograde, and it's retrograding past Eugene Carroll's sun. All right, they're conjunct. So the publication of this article, the planet is retrograding past the sun, and so it is basically planting a seed or in the case of this article, dropping a bombshell, okay, which is done in a very fiery way, and everyone knows about this. And so, what I want you to keep in mind here is that retrogrades can plant a seed, but retrogrades are also connected to things from the past coming back to reunite or to haunt. I'm sure several of you have read whenever Mercury goes retrograde, you'll have people coming back into your life, maybe old friends and things like that, people you want to see, and this is really exciting and fun, or people that you're like, oh my goodness, I wish they'd go away. Why are they coming back into my life? So there's always this coming back into your life of something from the past. It could be bumping into an old friend and how you doing, Chaz? Or it could be a past misdeed resurfacing, which is, of course, is what's taking place at this time. And so Jupiter retrograding past her sun triggers her to speak the truth. She speaks the truth, but it's not just like, oh, I get to speak the truth and that's it. I'm going to have to speak the truth, and now I'm going to have to stand up for the truth. And now I may very well face public shaming and public ostracization and public abuse, because this is not a private thing. It wasn't done in a court of law. It's done in the public square, basically, in the public arena. And she's going to have to face the consequences of that. And she does. As you might imagine, the accusation creates a storm. Immediately, people are like, well, why did she wait 24 years to say this? She's making it up. She's not Donald Trump's type. She's trying to sell her book. She's trying to embarrass Donald Trump, and she's doing it for self-glorification. Not only was she experiencing the reality that many women experience when they come forth with a charge like this, which is people not believing them or saying that they had asked for it or they're trying to get something out of it or something along those lines. But she actually had to really stand there and take a lot of verbal abuse on social media and all these sorts of things. Now, a Sagittarius is a mutable sign. So sometimes some Sagittarians would be like, okay, this is too much aggravation. I'm quitting this. I don't need this, It's a mutable sign. It doesn't like to push things too much unless it has to. It's the ruling planet Jupiter in Leo that says, okay, you've made the statement. You have to stand by it. You have to weather the storm and you have to stand by it no matter what. And here she's also putting on the line everything that she has stood for in her journalism, which has all been about empowering women, women being unafraid, and women standing up for themselves, particularly women standing up against bullying men. And so the case gets postponed until November 24th, 2022. So she sort of lives in this limbo where she is the subject of slurs and abuse and slander and outrage and all these sorts of things until November 24th, 2022. On November 24th, 2022, Carrol sues Trump a second time as a result of what was called New York's Adult Survivors Act, which went into effect the very day. Now, what this addressed was that a lot of time had passed since this event had happened, but this actually opened up a window for her to bring these charges again. And so she was bringing charges for the alleged assault, but she also included this time in her case that she opens on November 24th, 2022. She also includes a claim of defamation against Donald Trump. So not only is she coming back even more so with he assaulted me sexually, but also he has been defaming me. He's been making fun of me and writing my name through the mud since. And I want protection for this. I want something for this. And when she filed this suit on November 24th, 2022, that happened to coincide with a new moon in Sagittarius. All right. So November 24th, 2022, we're in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. So she's filing this in what I call in season. When is in season? When the sun is in your own zodiac sign. This is potentially the strongest time of year for you. And she's doing it on a new moon in Sagittarius. A new moon is when the sun and the moon are at the same point. The sun is going to be strong because she's born under the sun in Sagittarius, and the sun is the ruler of that Jupiter in Leo. And so if you're familiar with new moon rituals, new moon is when you set an intention. It's when you plant a seed. And so this case gets filed on this day. It's cleared certain technicalities that she can bring against Donald Trump, charges of sexual assault, and she can bring against Donald Trump, in addition, defamation, that he has ruined her name and he has ruined her reputation by making fun of her and deriding who she is. So that case is filed on November 24th, 2022. On May 9th, 2023, E. Jean Carroll is awarded $5 million in damages in a civil case against Donald Trump. So she feels very vindicated by this. She feels that she has won her case. She wanted to bring a case against him for having assaulted her and then defaming her. And she wants her life back. She wants her reputation back. She doesn't want to feel like she's a pariah because she's speaking the truth of what had happened to her, that he had assaulted her. And so on this day, on May 9th, 2023, the damages are assigned to her of $5 million. This coincides with her ruling planet Jupiter being at 28 degrees Aries. Her ruling planet, what you always want to do is look at where the ruling planet is in the sky in juxtaposition to you or in association with you. Your ruling planet is going to champion you. Even if you're born under Saturn, Saturn's your ruling planet actually becomes a friend. It champions you. So Saturn champions people born under Capricorn and Aquarius, just like, for instance, Mercury champions people born under Gemini and Virgo. Jupiter champions Sagittarius, okay? We're also in a Jupiter arena, the court system. The court system is ruled by the planet Jupiter, all right? Jupiter is justice. Jupiter is the government, all right? So here we have a child of Jupiter bringing charges against someone who's very, very high up. You know, the highest that you can get in the is the office of the president of the United States, and she's doing it in the court system. On this day that she is awarded $5 million, this coincides with her ruling planet Jupiter being at 28 degrees Aries. That is important for two reasons. The first one is that Aries, like Sagittarius, is a fire sign. The three fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So when you have a planet which is forming an aspect to itself in its own element, that is a very, very powerful statement. So her ruling planet is at 28 degrees Aries, and it is forming almost an exact trine to her own ruling planet at 27 degrees Leo. So this is the victory. This is the triumph. Remember, Pluto is the planet of ordeals and the transformations that arise from them. She is assaulted when Pluto initially enters Sagittarius. This is the ordeal, and the ordeal goes on for a very long time because Pluto left Sagittarius in 2009. And so it's not until the second time that Jupiter, the planet of justice, has gone through her own sign Sagittarius that this begins the action to do something about having been assaulted, to want justice, to get justice for what was done to her, and then taking on the public ridicule, the public mockery, all those sorts of things. So on this day, which is May 9th, 2023, her ruling planet Jupiter is in Aries, which trines Sagittarius, but it's forming an almost exact trine to her own ruling planet at 27 degrees Leo. So this is very powerful stuff. This is redemptive stuff. This is deliverance. And Jupiter is associated with deliverance. Jupiter delivers you from whatever dark place or hopeless predicament that you happen to be in. Jupiter, if it's making a benevolent aspect, delivers. And here Jupiter does deliver. If you take on the ordeal of Pluto and you go through its transformation, Pluto is also the god of riches. It's the god of the underworld, the god of the dead, the god of seeds. But Pluto also rules over everything that's buried under the ground, whether it's gold, silver, precious metals, or even oil. Okay, so Pluto is the god of riches. And so what began with this Pluto entering Sagittarius, we now have with this Jupiter, forming this final trine to E. Jean Carroll's own Jupiter. In Leo, Jupiter is a ruling planet. Jupiter rules the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. So she thinks, okay, that's it. That's done. I've gotten my reward. It's $5 million. That's a nice amount of money, and my reputation has been recovered. And I can no longer put up with any of this. People recognize that I was assaulted, and that I have a good name. Okay. Leo is all about the name. And you've got Jupiter, Leo, your name being in good standing is going to matter a lot to you. And these things indeed matter to E. Jean Carroll. Well, this verdict is delivered on May 9th. And on May 11th, Trump appears on a CNN town hall where he begins making fun of E. Jean Carroll. He calls her a whack job. He says that she concocted this fake story. He begins claiming that she named her cat or dog. He can't really remember if it's a cat or a dog, vagina, and says, what kind of woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, unquote. And Carol was surprised that this was brought up. This was all supposed to have been laid to rest. She was surprised by the people in the audience of this town hall laughing and jeering at her, and him, enjoying mocking her and making her look and sound ridiculous after she had been awarded this $5 million in damages. And so she says at the time, it was not a slap against me. It was a slap against almost every single woman who was hearing him. Every woman who's just been merely pinched or grabbed. And then the guy laughs and denies what he's done. Hearing him saying those terrible things about me, I'm sure they were hurt, that other women were hurt, just like I was. So her lawyer decides, we're going to sue him again. He broke basically this trust that you don't do this anymore. He had lost the case of slandering her, of demeaning her. And so she decides, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer says, we're filing a lawsuit right now again, because this cannot happen. And again, what was going on is that this was bringing up verbal assaults, threats, over social media towards her. It's bullying that was being done on a mass and very public scale. Now, her lawyer said, I doubt that filing another suit can bring to a stop the attacks and slurs, but I'm committed to bringing it to an end if you are. And E. Jean Carroll responded, yes, I am too. So they sue again for, I think it's like another $10 million, because they're feeling as only money is going to make him stop doing this, and he needs to stop doing this. So one sort of begins to wonder, why was Trump so obsessed with this? What keeps bringing these two people back into one another's orbit? And what's fascinating to see when you look at Donald Trump's chart, the chart that we have for E. Jean Carroll, we do not have a birth time. So it's cast for like a 12 noon. So just, keep that in mind. I just want you to sort of pay attention to her ruling planet and her sun. But we do have Donald Trump's chart. And what's fascinating when you look at Donald Trump's chart in conjunction with hers is that her sun in Sagittarius is conjunct his moon. And sun-moon conjunctions are aspects that appear in marriage. And that's kind of like an odd thing. It's like, why is an aspect that often appears in marriage showing up, in a chart dealing with sexual assault? And well, for many centuries, women regarded being married as sexual assault. I mean, I will say that. So maybe that's a comment that the ancients were making about it. Um, but there's a kind of, I can't give up on this when you have a sun moon conjunction. If it's harmonious, it makes for a marriage and it makes for a bond that lasts. If there's something about it that's inharmonious, then it can become a grudge or a feud. What makes this inharmonious, as you'll see in Donald Trump's chart, he's born under a full moon. So his is in Sagittarius, and his sun is opposite. His moon is conjunct her sun, which actually creates a sort of passive position with him. He takes on the more yin place because it's his moon, which is conjunct her sun. She's more solar over him. But the opposition is very much at odds, and typically with oppositions, they can be connected to passionate love affairs that come together very quickly and burn out just as fast, or they can be connected to polarization or in opposite camps, or we have nothing in common, we'll have nothing to do with each other. But because he's a full moon and his moon is conjunct her sun, that becomes the latch or the hook. This is the inability to stop doing what one is doing. This becomes amplified when you see that E. Jean Carroll's ruling planet Jupiter is conjunct Donald Trump's Mars and ascendant. So that is bringing up a very antagonistic and very hostile combination there. Conjunctions are supposed to be good, but I've actually seen the very brutal side to a Jupiter-Mars conjunction. So this basically connects them, for better or for worse. And in the story that I've been relating to you, it's clearly been worse. And so this is what keeps drawing them back into one another. She will not give up her pursuit of justice and her pursuit of courage. What she's been challenged on throughout these years is the courage. And what is Leo? Leo's the heart. Remember the Cowardly Lion, Wizard of Oz? It's courage. That's the thing that he wants. Well, the heart is, what is it? Quote Leon. It's the heart of the lion. It's courage. It's bravery. And this is something that E. Jean Carroll often felt very like, can I be that brave? Can I be that courageous? And the Jupiter in Leo is saying, basically, you have to be. You have to be that brave and you have to be courageous if you want your freedom, which is a cardinal virtue of Sagittarius. If you want to live in a place of courage and strength and in the sun, you have to stand up to that. You have to be that brave. So on December 13th, 2023, 2 days after her birthday. So remember, the lawyer encouraged E. Jean Carroll to sue again for additional money. The thought was just really to make this guy stop deriding her, to stop defaming her, to stop demeaning her. That was really the intent. Donald Trump claims he's got presidential immunity. He's not in office, but he claims that he has presidential immunity. I guess once a president, always a president if you're a Leo rising, but he claims that he's got presidential immunity and he's above all of this, and as you might imagine, the courts disagree. You're not in office and you don't have immunity. So what's fascinating is that it's on December 13th, 2023, 2 days after E. Jean Carroll's birthday, when the sun in the sky was conjunct her own sun in her chart, that the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan upheld a federal judge's decision to reject Trump's claim of immunity. Okay, his immunity is thrown out. This happens in Sagittarius season, December 13th. This is E. Jean Carroll at her strongest. This is Trump being a Gemini at his weakest. And in a lawsuit where she had sought an additional $10 million in damages from Trump over comments he made in June 2019 when he was president about her, after she first publicly accused him of raping her in a Manhattan department store in the mid-1990s, Trump had denied knowing Carroll, said she was not his type, and that she made up the rape claim to promote her upcoming memoir. So this was all brought in under the defaming of her and her character. So this is what this lawsuit on December 13, 2023 is about. It's basically, we want an additional $10 million. Maybe that will make him stop, demeaning her, deriding her, mocking her, and the whole thing will be done. Nobody expected on January 26, 2024, the second jury coming back and ordering Donald Trump to pay up $83.3 million to E. Jean Carroll for defaming her in June 2019 when the story first came forth. This verdict vastly eclipsed the $5 million ruling earlier that she had been sexually assaulted and was defamed by him in Truth Social posts. Donald Trump had attended every single day of this trial, and he famously walks out before the jury issues their verdict. So imagine going from 5, okay, we're going to go to 10 because we're trying just to make this person stop, and then ending up with $83.3 million. So obviously she's elated and overjoyed, not really because of the money, because she knows full well it's going to be caught up in appeals, probably for years. But what it is, as she said on that day, this is a great victory for every woman who stands up when she's been knocked down, and a huge defeat for every bully who has tried to keep a woman down. As I said, it's unlikely that Carol will see this money anytime soon, but she did succeed in doing two very important things. She sent a message that no one is above the law, including former presidents. Remember, Sagittarius is connected to Jupiter, which is the planet of justice. No one is exempt from the law. That's part of the message she sent. And also, what happened as a result is that New York, the state of New York, decided to expand its legal definition of rape. New York State decided to expand its legal definition of rape to include various forms of non-consensual sex. And this was extremely important because the definition of rape in the state of New York is very limited. It's very specific. And this is what forced it to be called a sexual assault case rather than a rape case, which is what E. Jean Carroll said that it was. So when you think about putting yourself forward, which is what a Leo does, that the ruling planet Jupiter is in Leo, it's getting justice for having been oppressed or been put down. Sagittarians are famously about freedom and standing up for the rights of people. It's an extraordinary thing that she did, and it's an extraordinary end to the story. And it just goes to show that in the end, it was E. Jean Carroll who wound up grabbing Donald Trump by the Percy. If you enjoyed what you saw, please press the like button. It helps more than you know. And while you're at it, if you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. It's free, and it ensures that you will never miss an episode of Christopher Renstrom Astrology. And finally, if you press the video on the left, that will take you into a deep dive into other episodes of Christopher Renstrom Astrology. I've had such a wonderful time visiting with you this week, and I can't wait to get together next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.